Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed, unfortunately, will not be joining us for this episode, but the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com, and we are joined by very special guest, the voice of Washington, Mr. Scott Jackson. How are you doing on this beautiful Monday evening, sir?
Good. How you guys doing?
Fantastic, sir. We're just celebrating freedom, Mr. Jackson.
Yeah.
We thought none other to bring you on here to be able to talk about the good old America's team, being the Commanders that we all know so well. My first question for you, ESPN had just done a power ranking heading into the season, listed the Commanders at 24. Talk to me about that, because the Commanders beat two of the teams that ESPN ranked in the top 10 for this season. Explain that to me. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, you know, NFL, any given Sunday, obviously, you can beat teams. Bad teams beat good teams all the time. I mean, it happens. This team was, 2 weeks left in the season, had a chance to, get in a wild card spot. Obviously, they lost to Cleveland, and the rest is history. But look, if you're from the outside looking in, you got to take, kind of a generic look at this and pull yourself out of take your feelings out of it. I understand it. You got a quarterback who's played one game. And it was fine. It was a good performance. Was he Pat Mahomes? No. But was he Carson Wentz? No, thank God. So, I mean, as you know, and then you look at that part of it, new offensive coordinator, which should be a benefit to this team. But, there's a lot of new pieces on the offensive line. It's completely reworked, so from that standpoint, I kind of see on the outside, they were already behind three of the teams in the division. They didn't beat the Giants once. I mean, I thought they were better than the Giants. I have no proof of that because they never beat them. So Philadelphia didn't get any worse. Dallas, despite their coach, still very talented. They got an excellent defense. So I get it. I mean, you just start adding up the teams, and so I see how it falls that way. You got everybody kind of on a prove-it year, including coaches, right? I mean, you have a whole staff is on a prove-it year. You've got Chase Young on a prove-it year, Cam Curl, Sweat. Maybe a couple of those can get done before camp, Curl or Sweat once the ownership change takes place. But so I get it. I mean, I understand it. And they didn't, let's be honest, they didn't go out and do any big stuff in free agency. And that's what often causes teams to jump up in terms of the hype. That's why the Jets are so high. They got Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I get it. Right. Whether you like Aaron Rodgers or not, he's a drama queen, but he's a hell of a quarterback. So I understand, why from the outside looking in, nobody's going to be excited. I don't think this team is going to be terrible, but I don't know if they're going to be great either. I think, kind of like they have been the last few years, I think to be 2 or 3 games that are going to make or break whether they're a playoff team or we're talking about 7 wins again.
Yeah, I need to find out how the Broncos were able to get up to top 15 in the ESPN ranking by only adding Sean Payton. Apparently,
that's a big add. Well, as much as they're paying them, they better be in the top 15.
You're right.
Well, we'll find out early, right? I mean, so the Commanders get them early, got Arizona, week 1, and then they get the Broncos. Those feel like really important games for Ron Rivera, who hasn't exactly been Mr. September. The openers have been okay. They've been good, but after that, September's been a mess. I mean, and really it doesn't feel like with the change that you really want to get off to a slow start. That's not probably a prescription for success. And, they've talked about fast starts a bunch of times during, the offseason workouts that I find interesting because clearly they understand, what's at stake here.
Yeah, 100% agree. And if you look at those first 6 games, I mean, there's definitely just on paper, potentially there's some winnable games in there. So definitely got to get off to a fast start. But you mentioned Eric Bieniemy. Obviously, he was the, if you want to call him the big acquisition of the offseason because they didn't really do anything in free agency. I know everyone just kind of assumes that he's coming from Kansas City and he was around Pat Mahomes and Kelsey and Tyreek Hill and Andy Reid, that whole organization, that he's going to come in and just be the best play caller in the NFL and just elevate this offense. But obviously there's a new offensive line coming in with some new starters, new quarterback, basically new offense he's got to teach everybody. What are you kind of expecting from this offense? Do you think they're going to get off to a slow start, or do you think that they might hit the ground running and potentially provide this defense with a lead to play with for once in a while?
That would be nice. I mean, my fear is, they probably are going to have some struggles early. As you mentioned, there's a lot of things at stake. And let's let's be real. I mean, Eric Bieniemy, part of that successful Kansas City run, but not the play caller, right? I mean, that's Andy Reid's job. He called some plays, but he was not the primary play caller. So it is a different role for him. I like everything about him that I've seen, in the OTAs and then minicamp. He's very vocal. You hear players talk about accountability a lot, and they really enjoy that, being coached hard, and it just kind of makes you wonder why they didn't try to find that the previous 2 years when it wasn't working. And they waited till, now, or 3 years, I should say, had to wait 3 years to finally make a move at that side of the ball. And remember, Scott Turner got an extension at one point, which is kind of crazy to think about. Now he's out. But I mean, I think there's reason to believe that, early on, they're going to probably have to rely on the running game. They've got good running backs. They can run the ball and make it easier for Sam Howell. I remember last year's offense. I mean, they get a really good week one, had a good second half in week two. And then obviously the bottom fell out for a few games after that with Wentz. I just want to hopefully avoid those kind of things, just try to find a level of consistency. But I mean, he's got a lot of weapons around him. I mean, I'll say that. I mean, they've got a lot of people around Hal. He's obviously got some mobility. I think he's got a little bit of that trust, not swagger from his teammates here that you're hearing about, which is encouraging because, that was the one thing you could say all you want about Taylor's noodle arm, that Taylor didn't have this, Taylor didn't do that. The guys love Taylor Heineke. I mean, Bottom line, they love Taylor Heineke and they played for him. So I think Hal's got that going for him with more talent, but he's got to put it all together and get on the field. But yeah, I mean, I think that there is a reason to believe the defense is going to have to be the number one unit on this team, and they should be, because that's where a lot of the investment is from the jump. And hopefully with some of these new additions in the secondary in particular, they finally start, being one of the better teams in terms of takeaways in the league and really help this offense with some short fields and maybe even score for them.
And Scott, I want to change some tune here and go off the field. Last week, it got reported by the Washington Post of Mark Mask and Nikki Gilabala, or no, Sally Jenkins, maybe I might be mistaken.
I think it was Nikki. No, I think you're right. It was Nikki, yeah.
They had come out with a report saying that Jason Wright is safe for now under the new ownership. Obviously, it's not cemented, it's not concrete, sure. Anything can happen, but that's great news for me personally. I love to see the fact that Jason Wright is able to finish the job that he did. So my question for you, is that crazy to you that Jason Wright was able to have this ability to finish the job?
Well, I don't know if he's going to finish the job, and I'm sorry, my video just went out of nowhere for some reason. It's man, I got to face the radio, and I just broke my camera apparently. So anyway, it doesn't surprise me that they're going to keep him on initially. I mean, I don't know if that means just the season, parts of the season. You know what I mean? Josh Harris, if you look at his past, he has not been a guns blazing coming in, bloodletting, kind of guy in the other stops. So I think that doesn't shock me the more I think about it. And, we'll see if he truly gets to finish the job or not. I mean, if again, things appear to be going the right direction business wise, I guess a lot of it boils down to how do you perceive the rebrand and whose mistakes those were made, and how much was that influenced by the previous owner and Will Misselbrook, who's long gone now, and some of these other folks. So, yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, right away, I didn't expect a lot of major changes. I think he'll have his people there, though. He'll have his people, or co-owners will be there. I would imagine early on to kind of get a feel for how things are going. I don't think he's going to leave the store unmanned, so to speak, right. With people that he didn't hire. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, I'm obviously, like a lot of people, got a lot of high hopes for him based off of what we've seen in his other stops, in his other sports.
Yeah, definitely. Another big storyline coming into this, while during the offseason and going into training camp, is Chase Young. Obviously, they declined the fifth-year option, so he could potentially be playing for a franchise tag or maybe even a big contract, depending on how big of a year he has. And speaking of the year he has, what do you expect from Chase Young? Do you think that he resembles kind of rookie year Chase Young, or do you think that he's kind of, I guess, if you want to call it, maxed out his time in Washington?
Hey, Scott, you there? Might have dropped him. Hold on, no, he's still here. Looks like his connection might be going bad. Looks like we lost your sound, Scott. But that's a great question, dude. And it's a big...
Thank you.
Because Chase Young is going to be massive for everybody involved. We talked about it before. Chase Young's contribution to this defense just makes everybody better. And
Yeah.
Montez Sweat going into a contract year along with Chase Young is monumental. And one of the questions I was going to ask Scott Jackson was if he thought that Montez Sweat could follow in Daron Payne's footsteps. So the fact that you go the other direction with Chase Young, you and I think alike, my friend. But I
Yes,
wanted to
sir.
bounce that question off of you.
Yeah. As far as Montez Sweat,
Yes.
I think that I think that he does, like, barring that any injury or nothing like that. If he stays healthy, he can play majority of the games this year. Um, a lot of people that we had on that like look into like the analytics and all the PFF stats and whatnot, they know that he's like really high up there in pressures, really high up there in QB hits, hurries, and whatnot. So it's just about, and Jack Del Rio talked about it, it's about finishing the play and actually just getting to the quarterback and, you know, finishing that. So I definitely think that he's due for a big year and
Hey.
probably a payday as well.
And now we are rejoined by Mr. Scott Jackson. How you doing, brother?
Good. I don't know how I have two screens up with actually one screen working and the one not. Anyway, interesting. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, look, I hope he's resembling the guy from his rookie season. You know, clearly last year's hard to really, really give him much of anything for, because he was coming up back and just kind of proving to himself, getting psychologically ready for it. He's obviously got a lot to prove. He's very talented. I mean, I don't think you doubt that. They clearly, I think, did the smart thing, though. With there's not production, it's hard to bite. That was a pretty big number to jump on, especially if you want to do some other things with the salary cap the way it is. So, I mean, I'm hopeful. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm hopeful, and I think he's got a lot of reason to be motivated and get after it and have a good season. And we'll see. I mean, there's been a lot of, but you know how it goes. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, there's some guys that are just, they look like, you watch them, like, oh my God, this guy should be a 20-sack guy. The production never matches the talent for whatever reason. It just doesn't click. I hope he's not one of those guys. I hope the production does match the talent guy eventually. But it's been 2 years since we really saw it. So this is obviously a huge year for him. Hopefully he'll benefit from the coaching the other guys did last year with Ryan Kerrigan aboard and Coach Z, who did such a good job when they made that position change with the coaches.
And Scott, I'm impressed you even heard his question. I thought that he would have to redo it, but very good job.
No, I did. I was just in the shadows apparently.
No, Scott Shadow Jackson. Now we got a nickname for you. Last couple questions I have for you before we get done with this. PFF has said that they did an article for all 32 teams on the bounce back player that is most projected for this season. And I was expecting Chase Young to be there, but PFF has put on Antonio Gibson as that bounce back player. It's not surprising to us with Eric Bieniemy being added here as a former running back, but kind of talk about that and what you have seen and heard.
Well, he could be, right? I mean, it just seems like he's the perfect fit for what Bieniemy wants to do in terms of being able to receive the ball in the backfield. He throws underneath a lot, gets guys out in space, and that seems to be something that could really benefit, Antonio's skill set. And obviously, he's another guy who's in a prove-it year, right? I mean, this is his contract year as well. So, I mean, there's definitely reason to believe he's going to be a really good fit in this thing. And I'm hopeful they'll kind of get him more involved in the passing game. It's always kind of frustrating in the last few years. There was always the discussion of it. There were glimpses of it, but it was never a consistent thing. And I'll be curious to see how they handle the backs. I mean, obviously last year, the staff really leaned towards, Robinson once he was fully healthy and ready to play. But, again, Bieniemy's got no connection to any of these guys. I mean, Rodriguez is the only guy that was brought in since he's been here. So he's going to hopefully just play the hot hand. Whoever seems to be the best matchup that game, just roll with them, and not be caught up on, we got to prove our draft pick right or whatever.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of these hypothetical conversations. What could happen in a year from now? And obviously, Josh Harris and company taking over, we don't really know. But let's just say that the D-line has a very good year. Chase Young comes back, has a career year. Same thing with Montez Sweat. He follows Daron Payne, gets a bunch of sacks. I've heard figures of $80 million to $100 million of cap space for next year, Scott. So my question is it possible for Washington to re-sign the entire defensive line?
It's possible. It's probably not smart, though, especially with the guys you drafted behind him. Look, you've seen that they can be a very good line with Tuhill or James Smith-Williams. Right. I mean, I think Obata's been really good when he's played. They got depth at the tackle position now, too, with Phil Mathis back. And obviously Ridgeway was like found money last year with grabbing him off the Cowboys practice squad and the production he produced. So, and they drafted, obviously, two ends in the draft. I mean, KJ Henry, probably get the bigger upside immediately than the kid from Louisiana. But I think it's tough to do it that way. I mean, I think it's probably more likely an either or, but again, crazier things have happened. I'll be honest with you, I never saw the Payne thing happen in this offseason. I thought we were going to be in purgatory until the new ownership came in. So that was a pleasant surprise. So they did help, right? Because you were able to do that. And the beauty of this, if Sam Howell works, is he is under a rookie contract for at least 3 more seasons or beyond, well, 2 more beyond this year. But obviously it'd really be like 1. If he's really good, you're going to have to pay him, before the 4th year or going into that season. So, but anyway, so that gives you time. That's the beauty of this idea that, hey, if Sam Howell is who we think he is or can be, you can really build out the roster.
Yeah, and Scott, I'll tell you, I'll be pissed if Sam Howell does really well and going into that 4th year, they're talking about franchise tagging him. Like, I'm not going down this route again, Scott.
No. Right.
That being said, last question I have for you. Yep. Realistically speaking, going into week 1 against Arizona, who ESPN ranked as the last team in 32nd in the NFL in power rankings, what are your expectations for Sam Howell in that game?
Well, I mean, I think that's a good start, good place to start for him. I'll just be curious to see how pass heavy they were. One of my frustrations about the Sam Howell week 18 start last year was, first of all, it took like 3 tries to get it right. Like first it was like he was going to play a half. We're not sure we want to play him, blah, blah, blah. They finally just play him. But then they played him, and then they're kicking field goals on 4th and 1.5 yards on Dallas's 20-something yard line. I'm like, what are we doing here? I mean, this game means nothing. Just let the kid play. They didn't let him throw enough. They didn't show everything. So, again, I don't know. I mean, is he throwing the ball 35 times? I would think you don't want him throwing 50 times the first game. If you are, you're probably in trouble. That means you're losing and, you're trying to come back in the game. But I don't know. I mean, like numbers-wise, you just hope he's efficient, takes care of the ball. I mean, the one thing the problem, obviously, in the Cowboy game, he throws the pick in the end zone, in the red zone. You don't want to see that. But I do look forward to seeing the options they have with him. Because I think the run threat is real with him too, and I think they can work that in. And we don't see any of that in the OTAs because obviously everything's a passing drill at this point. Right. So there's no real look as to what that red zone stuff could look like with Sam Howell as a run threat.
Yeah, we're all hoping that comes through. Last question, really, really quickly, Scott. I know you got to get out of here, but how many tight ends do you expect for Washington to keep on the 53-man roster?
Well, I mean, Logan obviously is going to be there. Bates is going to be there. Turner, Hodges. So like 4, I would think maybe 4, maybe 3 active, and then 1, maybe you try to sneak Hodges the practice squad at that point with the enlarged practice squad. So I'd say 3 to 4 max. It really just depends on what else you need in other places and, getting injuries, knock on wood and all that other stuff would happen. But I'll tell you what, Hodges and Turner in the OTAs, again, no pads, helmets on, shorts. They've looked good. They looked the part, as did Logan. Logan looked great. And that's terrific news coming off, that injury and, kind of playing and kind of a little limited last year, I would say, when he was on the field. So that was certainly encouraging to see out there. And they're huge. I mean, it's the room. If I was picking like a basketball team, I'm like, I want the tight end room, taking everybody. We'll take them on. I'll be the point guard, Hodges, you go post up, Turner, and then rotate the guys in. If we're doing like a 3-on-3 team, it'd be easy.
Absolutely would. Really quick, I know I already told you I had last question for you.
That's
twice
fine.
in a row. Yes or no question. Do you expect any type of moves, trade, signings, anything like that before training camp?
Well, I mean, unless there's an injury, probably not with the signings. I know they kicked the tires on Kareem Hunt. There was a report they might be doing that. It doesn't seem to make sense right now to do that. Unless, again, there was an injury or something like that. And, trade-wise, I mean, there's always a speculation. What if Chase looks amazing and, some of these camps or, in the game, in the season, maybe you do it before the deadline. I wouldn't think before the season anything would happen there. Although it did feel like Albert Breer was like being used by somebody during training camp with that amazing review of Chase Young, even though he wasn't even actually at the practice, which was kind of interesting. But clearly either the agent got in his ear or Ron got in his ear and said, "Hey, Chase was unbelievable. Put this out," and it was kind of funny to see that, because a lot of times teams do that, trying to build a guy up and want interest else from others to see what they can do. So I guess there's always that to keep our eyes on, depending on how the preseason goes.
Yeah, you always got to ask yourself when you see those reports, who does this benefit the most?
Right.
And generally, that's the one feeding the info, right, Scott?
Exactly.
Scott, I can't thank you enough for joining us before you got some plans. I really do appreciate
No worries.
sir. I hope you go enjoy your evening, and we'll be able to talk again during training camp if possible.
Absolutely. You guys have a great 4th. Thanks for having me on.
You too as well, sir.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Scott. Have a good evening. All right, everybody, we just spoke with a man, Mr. Scott Jackson. Well, two of them we're lucky enough to be able to do that.
Yeah.
How
One
many
was
peop-
Shadow and one was real Scott Jackson.
Yeah, how many people are able to say that they interviewed Scott Jackson twice at the same time? Not many. Now, before we
At
are
the
joined,
same damn time.
before we are joined by our next guest, and we're going to finish this episode with answering fan questions, and we have a load of them. We have a bunch. I want to get into the Colonel's question with you, sir, because obviously being 4th of July, us knowing the Colonel on a personal level, it's good for us, too, to be able to deliberate with these questions that he has. And this one is really, really good. Hall, he asks, former 49er and Redskin Reuben Foster just concluded an impressive season, falling one game short in the USFL championship game. He concluded his season with 53 tackles, 1 interception, and a half sacks. Any chance the Commanders or another NFL team will give him a tryout?
Yeah, that's a good question because I know Reuben Foster, the whole reason that he went into the USFL and was thinking about getting to the XFL and whatnot was to get like game film out there, put himself back on tape to kind of show NFL GMs and NFL teams like, hey, yeah, exactly. You would think that, but he's still waiting for a call 6 years later.
You saw that report?
Yeah.
Stupid.
But yeah, I definitely think that look, I didn't watch probably more than 5 minutes worth of USFL football this little season that they had, but I did see a couple highlights that was floating on Twitter, and like Reuben Foster was looking like the old thumper that he used to be coming out of college and before he had the injury. So, I mean, hopefully he gets a chance and hopefully he gets a shot. All you can ask for is to get a shot in training camp and get a shot to make a roster or maybe a practice squad. But yeah, I don't really know how GMs and the medicals and whatnot look as far as like all the deep diving into like the official team stuff. But yeah, I'm all for guys getting second, third chances. Like, look at a guy like Josh Gordon, who all the ability in the world kept coming back. So yeah, I just hope that Reuben gets another shot because at his height in Alabama, he was one of the best linebackers in college football coming out.
Yeah, he was. Remember that pre-draft eval of him and the crazy stuff he did at the combine. I think that Reuben has done enough to get himself a tryout, without a doubt, with an NFL team. Because if you look at Reuben Foster, where he comes from, if you're playing in the USFL, the expectation should be that you play at this kind of caliber of play. And so that he is doing that shows you that maybe he is getting back to that. But that's not something you warrant in a future contract or everything, honestly. But if it's somebody that needs help, some depth there, obviously you go down the route with Reuben Foster. He's a changed man. He's different than when he was pre-injury or where he was when he was a young man. So I would kick the tires on that. I think Ron Rivera would as well. Obviously, there's a familiarity there, and unfortunately, he got injured way back when. He could have really helped us on this defense, but I'm not against it. I do think that the USFL and these sort of things, this is exactly what it's for you to be able to keep your dream and hope alive by bringing this film out there in hopes that somebody for the NFL will give you a call. I wish others out there who were so easy to put others not down, but to point the finger and say, this is why I'm not this, and that. Well, if you follow Reuben Foster and you play like Reuben Foster, there's probably a good chance you're going to be able to make it in the NFL, much less America. So maybe we should follow Reuben Foster's footsteps. The next question, Hall, from the Colonel. Not that he's ever lived up to his number 1 overall draft selection expectations. Do you put any stock into the rumors of the Commanders' interest in Chase Young that was reported by Sports Illustrated?
As far as like trading him to, I think it was the Colts or something like that was the latest
the Commanders
report.
are listed as a landing spot for Jadeveon Clowney, but isn't getting Chase Young a
Clowney.
Yeah, better idea.
Yeah, I don't really see them adding anything to the defensive end room just because they just drafted the young guys and they already have a couple veterans in Smith Williams and Tuhill, I believe, is still on the roster. Is Tuhill still here? I can't remember.
Yes.
But yeah, so Tuhill, Smith Williams is there as well.
Obata.
And they just drafted a couple. Obata is there. He can play inside and outside. And they just drafted a couple young guys. And I know Ron Rivera is all about giving the young guys a shot if the opportunity arises, as opposed to maybe going out and getting a veteran like Jadeveon Clowney who might give you some production, might not, and is obviously going to cost a little bit more than the young guy you just drafted. So
right.
I think that, I think the coaching staff, unless obviously they get to training camp and the young guys are not there yet and the need is there, then maybe, yes. But I still think that even going back to a guy like Jeremy Reeves and the whole Eric Reed situation, everyone expected him to sign Eric Reed because he knew him. He's a veteran guy. He gave the young guy Jeremy Reeves a shot, and look, he's all pro Revo now in special teams. The rest is history. So I definitely think that he would go with the younger guys on the roster before he went out and got a veteran like Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, you're right. David Lantham of Last Word on Sports is who is reporting of the possible interest. Make sure that you mute your mic, my dude.
Gosh.
But Colonel, I do think you're right on this with saying, I'm kind of pissed at you for the fact that I have to give credence to this stupid article, because I don't think it's really possible, because his reasoning for it is saying that Jadeveon Clowney should go to a place where he's going in rotation. Well, that being said, obviously that would be a rotation here. But you already talked about, they added Andre Jones. They drafted in the 7th round. They got KJ Henry in the 5th round. They have Tuhill. They have Obata, not including Montez Sweat, and Chase Young, obviously still unproven in a sense. But the fact is, these guys were productive. This was a good defense. And yeah, you should have very good pass rushers. But at one point, is it overkill? Because when is Jadeveon Clowney going to be pissed that he's not playing? And is that something you want to kind of start here? I think this is just candid fodder. I think this is just another time for people try to get clicks out there, because they know that the Commanders, typically the Washington fan base, is very eager for these sort of things. They love to put these kind of ideas out there. I do think it's interesting that so many people are linking Chase Young in these trade rumors, and we just heard from Scott Jackson talk about what Ron Rivera had said in regards to Chase Young and to Albert Breer or whatever, whoever said that to Albert Breer. I think there's smoke to that, and I do wonder how invested they are in getting rid of Chase Young, because I just don't see it being feasible, my dude. You know what I'm like? At this point in time, you would have done it in the offseason, not now, right before training camp. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's been my whole point the whole time is, if you're going to do it, you would have done it during the draft so that you can recoup the draft capital, because, again, Ron Rivera, the Martys, they don't know if they're going to be here next year. So if you're going to trade Chase Young for whatever you get back, they're not going to see the benefits of that, whatever trade, whatever picks or whatever they get back from him. So unless you do like a player for player type thing midseason, which again, if you're in a win now situation and a win now year and you got to produce Chase Young and Ron Rivera and the Martys, why would they trade away a guy that's helping them get wins on the field, like for future assets that might not even be around to use or like see, you know what I'm saying? So
why wouldn't Jadeveon do what Von Miller did and just wait around and just wait for a team to have an injury at rusher?
Exactly.
That's on their way to the playoffs. Like, why wouldn't he do that?
No, exactly. That's the smart thing to do. That's what most veteran guys at that stage of their career, where they can just come in and kind of just be pass rush specialists. That's what they do. They hop on the contending teams to kind of like ride the coattails and hopefully get a ring, which, look, I don't blame you. I would do the same thing.
Right.
So.
And the one thing about Jadeveon Clowney is that he is different from Chase Young in the way that Jadeveon Clowney got drafted simply by one highlight. It wasn't like he was highly productive. You know what? It wasn't like he was literally a pass rushing insane dude that you couldn't block. Like, that's what Chase Young was at Ohio State. It was insane what he did to offensive lines. So I think it is different there I'm talking about potential wise. I think Chase Young does have a tier over Jadeveon. I hate it when people bring up that comparison between the two, because I can't stand it. Now, this next question is from Twitter. That was DM'd from our guy, the Commanders Call. He says, good morning and happy 4th of July to you and the guys. Happy 4th of July to you too, brother. His question is, what is a possible position battle that the winner could wind up surprising our fans this coming up training camp?
Well, the obvious answer is going to be the left guard position, where I think everyone just kind of assumed is going to Chris Paul, but you've heard the coaching staff talk about Sadiq Charles, and you've heard other people that follow the team, report on the team, say they're going to give Sadiq Charles every opportunity to win the job and to lose the job. So I know a lot of people who are excited about the upside of Chris Paul and what he did against the Cowboys last year, and even though he had a couple blown assignments and kind of looked like out of place sometimes, the potential was still there, especially in the run game. He was mauling dudes. So I definitely think that people just kind of assume like Chris Paul's going to jump in there and win it, or they might like bring in a guy like Dalton Risner or whatever, and maybe to get that job. But I do think that it's going to be Sadiq Charles out there week 1 against Arizona, barring any type of injury.
And now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Corey Sanchez from On the Warpath. How are you doing, brother?
Oh, man, it's been a minute. I'm doing well, though. How you guys doing?
I cannot complain, Corey. It's always better to be able to talk to you. You know, you are the laughter that provides so much joy to all of us. And we had this fan question submitted to us by the Commanders call. And what is a possible position battle that the winner could wind up winning and surprising our fans is coming up in training camp?
You know what? I really think that when I look at, I think of the tight end spot because you really, I mean, yeah, we talk about, Cole Turner being there and Logan Thomas probably is the guy that's going to get most of the reps coming there. But I think you could see a pleasant surprise out of the tight end spot. John Bates, maybe if he gets his hands together, and Cole Turner, maybe the hype that he had coming into last year, maybe he lives up to it this year. But the tight end battle, because I think outside of offensive line on the offensive side of the ball, I think that's where the biggest question mark is. And, that's what Kansas City did. They made their bread and butter with Travis Kelce. So who's going to be Eric Bieniemy's Travis Kelce or Baby Kelce? Well, talk about Baby Gronk. Let's go with a Baby Kelce here in D.C.
Yeah, for me, the position battle, I will say that is going to surprise a lot of fans is Emmanuel Forbes winning the number 2 DB spot, being the outside corner on the other side opposite Benjamin St-Juste. I love Kendall Fuller, but in the spirit of the question, I got to pick somebody. I'll say it's Emmanuel Forbes taking the number 1 spot. I know a lot of people would say that's not that surprising, but it is surprising given the fact that Kendall did play so well last season. It's slotted that he should be starting, and Emmanuel Forbes could fit in somewhere else. Now, for me, without a doubt, it's Emmanuel Forbes. Now, this next question, Corey, going into our Discord chat server where all of our fan questions are submitted by our best ones. And this one's from Tony Shivers that I know you know so well. Thank you, Tony. His question is, what position do you believe could hang in there, well, for, say, 3 games, should the starter miss time?
Quarterback.
Don't say that.
Quarterback. I mean, this
Corey, why are you got to put that juju out there?
I'm just saying this to what it always happens to us. Quarterback, but you know what? For the sake of argument, I would say running back.
Damn it, are you serious?
Running back. Yeah, I'll say running back. Yeah, look, leave me. Come on, Kyle, man. Look, I just Jacoby Brissett's at the quarterback spot. I think any one of those 3 guys could be a starter in the running back stable. So that's the only one I really could think that could that's not as top heavy. But some places are having high expectations, some are lower. But yeah, I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm gonna say the quarterback spot because I think Brissett's won games in this league, and just as Sam does go down, or vice versa, I think they can help each other out for a couple of games.
Yeah, and to your point, I was going to pick running back, but I'll let you take it. You got it very well. But just given the fact B-Rob missed time last season, Antonio Gibson, they finished 12th overall in rushing. And then when AG got injured later on in the season, Brian Robinson took over, Jonathan Williams, Jared Patterson stepped in. So to your point, it's a really good selection. If I had to pick one, I would say center, just given the fact that they do have Tyler Larson as the backup center, and then behind him is Ricky Stromberg. So if there's anyone that I feel good about any injuries to, it would be center at this point, which is crazy to say after the past 2 seasons, but I think they did a good job this offseason at replenishing that position after Chase Rouillet walked.
Well, I was going to say center because friend of the show, Tyler Larson, stepped in, was 6-1, 5-1, 6-1, I want to say, something like that, 6-0 maybe. Yeah, 6-1 when he stepped in during that winning streak last year, holding it down.
I think it was 6-0 and 6-0.
Oh, because the tie in the New York, you're right, yeah. So my man was undefeated when he was in there, so shout out to him. You said quarterback, center.
It's hard.
I'll say either tackle position because I think Cornelius Lucas obviously is our swing tackle. He can play either left or right. And if you only got to put him in there for a 2, maybe 3 game stint, not like a full season's worth of games, I think a guy like Cornelius Lucas, who's obviously he's done it before for us in the past couple of seasons. So he can step in, be a serviceable guy, and not just be a turnstile, get beat every other play.
Yeah, and then Hall, this next question from Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi!
Oi!
Would you rather always have a full phone battery or a full gas tank?
Well, I've been living with a horrible phone. I still have an S9. They're on the S like 23 or 24 now. So I'm like 15 models behind. So my battery is literally the worst battery known to the Verizon mankind. Like, it literally dies. I get to work at 6 a.m. By like 8 o'clock, I got to put my phone on the charger because it's like on like 20%. So with that being said, I've been living with a dead battery phone for many, many years now. So I'd rather have a full tank of gas. Don't want to get stranded nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. I have like anxiety about losing gas. I've never ran out of gas ever. And so if I'm less than 100 miles left on the tank, I'm freaking out. So for me, I'll say a full gas tank just because of presence of mind, so to speak. Don't forget to mute. What about you, Corey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen the price of gas here? I mean, it's crack prices out here. So I always like to keep my gas tank full. Shout out to the people at Food City down here in Southwest Virginia. You know, we can go a country mile on gas down here. You know, it's a lot more affordable down in these parts. I'm not gonna brag. $2.99 a gallon right now during this holiday season. But you know, I'm we got a lot to be thankful for. Freedom and cheap gas. I love it.
My man, it's 4th of July, Corey.
Yeah.
Preach to the choir, brother. The next question from the Discord from Tim Towner. Corey, the 1 Point Safety Show had a good question you might want to pose to the boys. Would you rather go to a game shirtless in Buffalo in January or go to a opening week game in Miami wearing a Speedo?
Yeah, we gonna look. God. I see. I got I'm like a bucket of chicken. I got legs, breasts, and thighs, but I won't bring the sweet potato pies. So with that being said, I'll expose the breasts. I won't expose anybody to Speedos or anything like that. And just I can wear my shorts. I can wear my jeans. I'm just gonna go shirtless in that respect.
Yeah, if I went down to Miami, I'd look like a droopy Mr. Potato Head. I'll pick Buffalo in the cold. Me being white, I don't mind the cold as much, but Buffalo is insanely cold. Like once it gets to single digits, that's when I'm like, okay, we need to chill out here or something. But I'll choose Buffalo just because nobody needs to see those hairy legs. Nobody needs to see that.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'll pick Buffalo and shirtless because I'm a guy that when I go to games, I like to enjoy a couple drinks. So I can always put a liquor coat on, and I'm in Buffalo. If I get down to Miami, have a couple drinks, I'm gonna be out there sweating like a pig. So no one wants to see that. On top of me being in a Speedo, I mean that's just like throw that guy in jail at that point. So like no.
Yeah. Now this next question, it was a great one from Tim Towner Hall. What is your barbecue go-to meal from the grill, or just your favorite picnic food? Or do you have any 4th of July or fireworks horror stories?
4th of July horror stories. Out of the top of my head, there might have been one year where somebody was probably drunk and lit a firework. Oh, actually, I do have a horror story. So, so when I first moved in, like my parents, when they just moved from one neighborhood in Germantown to basically like the other side of Germantown to like basically like the Roberto Clemente side. If you're from Moco, you know what I'm talking about, to the Kingsview side. So, so we first moved there and it's like single family houses. It's like a new development. It's like just getting built up. And so, when they have like the hills of like dirt and stuff like that, they put the straw down so they want the grass to grow or whatever it's for. So it was 4th of July weekend. My cousins had come down from like Mount Airy, where they got they had some like bottle rockets and whatnot. And so we're out there playing with them, just shooting them off, letting them go. And we're on like it's like a hot summer dry day out, all that hay on the side of the hill and all that stuff. So I found out they're called bottle rockets for a reason. You're supposed to like actually put them inside the bottle when you shoot them off. I didn't know that. We just stuck it into the ground. So when it started like lighting off, it like obviously lit the whole hay and the side of the hill on fire. So like, this is like a week of us moving in here. So then we're like, oh, we're trying to put it out. At this point, it's like I said, it's a dry day. There's hay everywhere all over the hill, huge hill. It caught fire like you couldn't see me snap of a finger. The whole hill was torched. So much fire. There's woods over there. So like any normal, rational person, we just ran for our lives and just left the scene. And so, yeah, fire trucks came. They had to put the side of the hill out. So for like 2-3 months straight coming up the hill to my house or the neighborhood, because it was an unfinished road, you just saw a super burnt ass hill just black charcoal ass hill for like a good stretch of the way. So yeah, pretty much I did not listen to Smokey the Bear, and I did not put my forest fire out. I just ran.
And the barbecue for 4th of July, I mean, it has to be burgers. I'm not a hot dog guy. You guys can eat glizzies all day if you want. It's not my thing. But I will say ribs, without a doubt, should be on there, or a steak. Do I have any July 4th memories or crazy horror stories? No, I do not, because I'm a smart, sane person, Tim. I'm not a crazy one. But I will say probably one of the funniest fireworks stories that I had is that I had, of course, a friend who was from South Carolina whose dad ran a fireworks stand. So fireworks came aplenty when we were younger. And behind my friend's house, there's a bridge, a walkway that goes all the way probably about 2 or 3 miles back to the back door of my dad's house. And so this walkway, one side is all the back of the houses. The other side is just wooded area. And so we go out, and he has one of those rockets that it comes in its own tube. You know what I'm talking about. Like one of those ones that shoots straight up in the air you put on the ground. So we light that off, and there's nobody in the neighborhood. Nobody's outside, you know. We go light that off. It shoots up in the air like 100 feet, explodes, loud as hell. It sounds like a gunshot. So we run back to his house, and we go into his house. We go to his car, and we're leaving the neighborhood. And as we're leaving the neighborhood, all the neighbors are outside. All of them are talking to each other. You can see they're on the phone with police. And so we stop to his neighbor, and he's like, yeah, dude, what happened? He's like, oh, we heard this loud bomb go off. We're like, oh, really? That's crazy. So we just ended up leaving everybody there, driving away. And as we're leaving the neighborhood, there like 8 cops had pulled in as we're leaving the scene. So we just went back to my house and played video games. But I will finish you guys on a funny note. Dad joke I heard on the radio today. What is a pirate's favorite firework? And matey. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. It's bad. That's bad. It's really bad.
God.
I heard that on the radio. I was like, I got to save that for the show later. I said it to Ben, who's my coworker. Hall knows him, and he just shook his head at me. He was like, "What's wrong with you?" Now, this next question. Thank you, Tim. Hey, Corey, do you have anything? What do you want for barbecues 4th of July? Anything
food, hamburger. I got hamburger, maybe a little potatoes, but you can't eat. And Hall will tell you this too. You can't eat anybody's potato salad. You just can't eat anybody.
I don't eat potato salad in general.
See, you need to. That's what's wrong with you.
There's a lot.
But I will say, horror story I had. Shout out to JPP. I got my 3 fingers up for him, so it's not gang sign. It's just for Jason Pierre-Paul. You know, he's got that explosive hand. Never spare expenses when you're buying fireworks because they will attack you. I went with my family to a friend's house, and they got these cheap fireworks from down in North Carolina, and they literally started attacking the porch when they lit them. And like one ended up on me, and I was like, it was like Mrs. Doubtfire. It was like Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire, and you had to pan them off. So I had to like pan myself off of it. So like that was the worst one. But you know what? I said, this is what freedom feels like.
Getting attacked.
Yeah, getting attacked by fire.
Oh my goodness. Hall, this last question from Tim Town in Discord. I assume when you were younger, you dreamed of playing in the NFL. If so, what position were you playing? And if so, what number were you wearing?
Yeah, I always, outside of my first year ever playing football for the Mount Airy Bulldogs, I was a running back because I was like literally me and my cousin were the only 2 black people on the team, and we were the fastest 2 on the team. So like he was the fullback, I was a running back. I'm being serious. And shout out to my other guy, Michael Hall. He was a half mixed guy. Random 2 Michael Halls on the same team. Who would have thought?
Yeah, both mixed.
I'm not mixed. Shut up. You know, people do think I'm half Asian, but that's for a different reason. Well, I just thought about that. That could have went both ways. Either way, I'm getting sidetracked. What was the original question? Oh, so yeah. So I've always played receiver my whole life. So my favorite player of all time in NFL is Randy Moss. I remember seeing Randy Moss play at Marshall. Like that was like way, way back in the day. Like I was just randomly watch like college football games. Didn't really know what was going on, but I just remember Randy Moss, like tall, lanky black dude, running down the field in a lime green, highlight like green jersey from Marshall, and just frying everybody. And obviously, he got to the NFL, did the same thing. And I just remember going to my neighborhood, and I was going to like Moss people and just mossing people all the time. So, and Kyle knows I played flag football. people always thought like, oh, I'm going to put him in the line. I'm like, no, just put me a receiver. Get out there, do my thing.
Man.
I know. So, yeah, always receiver. I always wanted to get to NFL and be an NFL wide receiver. That was always my lifelong dream. But obviously, here I am now.
Yeah, obviously for me, I was a lineman early on. I was kind of a bigger guy as a teenager. So I played in high school line, D-line, O-line. But I was infatuated with safety. If I could pick anything, it would be safety. You know, every time I've played, I've never had the ball thrown over my head for a touchdown or anything like that. So I dare anybody to I even dare Sam Howell. What's up, dude? So safety, and then the number I would absolutely wear is 27. It's my favorite number. What about you, Corey?
Probably, I always wanted to be on the D line. Like I always wanted to be on the line, but I was fat and slow, so I didn't get to, I didn't get to that point. But
my old D-line coach used to tell me all the time, Corey, is that D-linemen are the best athletes on the team. Because nobody is bigger, has to carry around that weight, and has to use as much force and move as fast as they do.
Yeah. So yeah, that would have been me. I would have been a D lineman because I just want to attack and harass people. So. You know, now I do it verbally, so you know, it is what it worked out for me.
You and I both on Twitter, right, Corey?
Right.
Last question from the Discord from Mr. Irrelevant, Mr. Andy Lockhart in the UK. Oi, is Reed actually going to show up week 1? And also, is Kyle and I going to team up again to smoke everyone at pool? If we go out playing pool, of course, man. You know, the only reason I'm good at pool is because my grandfather used to always come over and you always never forget to walk through the door. Hey, Kyle, you want me to kick your ass at pool? Like, all right, let's go, Pop. You know, let's go down there. So, but I love playing pools. I would love to be able to do that. Now, in regards to Reed, I think we're both smart enough to know you probably should put many eggs into that basket. You know, I love the kid to death, but just don't do it. Now, let's go to Twitter for our fan questions to wrap up this episode, boys. This next question is from Zechariah Carter. Corey, question for you guys. What is the status of the number 27? I don't see it in circulation.
Huh.
That's Fred Smoot's number.
Yeah, it's been a minute, hasn't it?
I've been waiting for somebody to wear 27. Dude, my favorite number. I would love to be able to buy that jersey. And I thought Quan Martin should wear 27 because he wore 21 at Illinois, and I thought 27 would look really good for him because it's a great number.
Yeah, I like 27. That it made me kind of like. Didn't Walt Harris wear it too? Like that. Because Smoot wore 21 at first,
right? And
I think Walt Harris may have wore 27 for those couple of years while he was here, and then he left and went to Boat, Minnesota. And
Walt Harris, what a pull! Yeah, what a pull!
Yeah, there you go. I pulled that one out there. Hey.
Yeah,
that was 04 to 06, I think. Yeah, I think so with Walt Harris. But yeah, I mean. I'd love to see 27 out there. Wow, it hasn't been in circulation. Who's the last player to have that number?
Dude, I wasn't there a DB named like DeJuan Harris or something like that? I'm pretty sure one of those guys was wearing 27 in the mid-teens for the Redskins. I'm pretty sure.
Huh.
It's been a while. But honestly, what I would love to see is that it gets retired for Fred Smoot just for his draft reaction to Emmanuel Forbes. I think that's something that will live on forever. All throughout time. Last question from Scott Hartley in the UK on Twitter. Corey, as the episode is singing episode, this title of this episode, what song gets you fired up on game day, Corey?
Oh, man. What song gets me fired
I'll tell you what it is for Reed. It's Call Me Maybe.
I can see that. I could actually see that.
Yeah, I know. It's because it's true.
I like Put On. I put on for my city. I like that song. They get when you see me up in traffic, they say Jeezy also. Yeah, I'm not gonna say the rest of the song. I try to get sued, but hey, that gets me hyped, man.
They always played that stretching for football games, and I freaking hated it. And I will put it. They also were playing Phil Collins. You know, coming in the air tonight, and like, dude, I don't want to hear that either. It doesn't. It might have hyped you up in the '70s, but it doesn't do it for me, man. What song gets me hyped up on game day? To be perfectly honest with you, the one that has me wanting to like break lockers, bang my head through the wall, is "Down with the Sickness" by Disturbed. It's a timeless classic. Every single time you listen to it, you get jacked up. So for me, it's Disturbed, "Down with the Sickness."
Back in the day, we used to play in the locker room before we ran out in the game. We used to play 3-6 Mafia gang signs. That was the jump.
And you can't go wrong with Nuck if you buck as well.
Yeah, but when I'm at the game, I don't even really pay attention to the music. I'm not gonna lie, but probably like Put On or like some Future. That always gets me kind of hyped.
It would, definitely would. Surprised you didn't go with any new age artists with all the great music that's made nowadays. Corey, this next question from Commander Viscount.
I feel like that was a little sarcastic.
Washington has lots of players up for new contracts at the end of the 23 season. Besides Chase Young and Sweat, who gets a new deal between Gibson, Samuel, Charles, Curl, Obata, Revo, or Barton, etc.?
Curl.
Yeah, it's Curl.
Yeah, that's not even. There's no question. Who's outperformed his drafts where he was drafted? Cam Curl. And you can't find a safety of that quality out there just out willy-nilly. So,
and obviously, besides Revo, Curl is the only one that both head coach and coordinator has specifically pointed out and talked about in their contract year. So I would agree with you. It's Cam Curl. I think that's pretty easy. I appreciate you, Commander.
Yeah, I would say Curl. The only other person that might be like a possible candidate would be Cody Barton because he's on a 1-year deal. If he shows out and all of a sudden is a baller, like top 5, top 10 in a linebacker in the NFL, I could see them maybe getting like a 2-3 year deal done with him. But I mean, like you guys said, the only answer out of those guys, just because of age, position, and all that, is Cam Curl.
And based on what happens with the safety position, I would not be surprised if Revo does get that team-friendly kind of deal to be the special teams ace for this football team. If he continues to go down the route that he is, being the leader that he is, that's the type of person you want to keep around the locker room. I know Jeremy probably feels down in the dumps with all the moves that have been made recently, adding to the DB room. Maybe he feels slighted, but keep doing what you're doing on special teams, dude. You're going to have a job for a long time. I promise you that. Next question from King Commando Hall. Thank you, Proud Papa. Would you rather have a bad... Oh, this was a while ago. My bad. I completely botched that one completely. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this episode, boys. I appreciate you, Corey.
Yes.
No, I read the wrong one because I'm pretty sure we had more than that, but it looks like I botched that one completely. But, Corey, we've been trying to do this for a while. Your new studio is beautiful that you told me about. It looks amazing. So I'm really glad that you got far along with that. How is your studio coming?
This is the living room. So as you know, I got married.
Congratulations, Corey.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you. And so we've been combining our households. Finally, I'm in our new house, and my office studio is upstairs. I've got the desk in there. I'm putting the chair and stuff together and getting everything hooked up. So hopefully in the next week or so, we'll be back at it. And we got a big announcement coming up on the Warpath on the first one too. So,
Corey,
huh?
What is it, Corey? Who picked you up? Who picked you up?
Who picked me up? My Lord and Savior. But that's I can't spoil.
That's what you call a teaser.
Good job, Corey.
That's a tease, yeah.
I'm gonna get it out of you though. I'm gonna get it out
eventually.
I'll use Reed. Trust me, he's got some very stealthy tactics. You just trust me on that.
I got you.
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. It really has been a blast being able to talk with Scott Jackson and then Corey, taking some time out to be able to talk with us. Always love. The big reason why I always enjoy Corey is because he always makes us laugh, says the funniest things, and he really is just a delight to bring on and be around.
Y'all had Big Head Jackson on here. Y'all had Satellite Hardware Jackson on here.
He has a new nickname.
You had the Goodyear Blimp.
He has a new nickname.
Radio person that's on here, and you didn't let me get on here. Well, I'm hurt.
I didn't know if you'd be ready by that time, but I will tell you, his new nickname is Shadow. Scott Shadow Jackson now. So just let you know based on the interview. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. But before we go, Corey, you just like to plug your show handle and your Twitter, social media, everything, just in case anybody hasn't followed you yet and would like to.
At Sanchez 405 on all social media platforms, on the Warpath on YouTube.
My man, make sure you guys do that. It really is a riot. Corey has plenty to say, and it usually will make you laugh.
When I first heard Corey, he would call into the Travis Thomas experience, yes. And like I would always hear his voice, never put a face to it. then he came on the pod, and I was like, yo, you're that dude. You're hilarious. Yeah.
Corey,
My
I
man.
still to this day say 980 screwed up by not replacing Thomas with you. I will still say that, sir, because you would have done exactly what Thomas
Appreciate it.
would have done, and that would have been successful. But Corey,
Yeah.
we're not all perfect. They're not all as smart as me. I get it, man. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I can't thank you guys enough for tuning in. Follow me on Twitter at the Burgundy Zone. Type that in, or the Podfather. You can follow Hall at TBZ Money Mike 301, or you can follow Reed if you'd like. If you want to get pissed off about what Reed has to say, what joke he has to say, I'm telling you, look at his timeline. It's incredible. You can follow him at Mike Reed 2156. All right, everybody, we'll be back on Thursday. I hope you have enjoyed your 4th of July. Be safe. Don't JBP yourself. Just make sure the fireworks are away from the ammunition. Where you have everything else, just make sure they're separated. Don't be like those people in the Ring camera, all right? Don't have your house burning up on a celebration.
I saw that on Twitter. That was crazy.
Let's just enjoy our freedom in peace like the good Lord intended, right, Corey? All right, everybody.
Hey, amen. Amen. I got a claw for that.
Yes, sir. All right, everybody. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.